everybody, and welcome to Right Here, Right Now, live Buffalo football talk presented by Forefathers Organics. I'm your host, Alex Brasky, alongside my co-host, Ajay Cybulski, here for the Batavia Daily and Livingston County News. Each week, we'll discuss Buffalo's favorite football team, along with all the comings and goings from Orchard Park, thanks to our friends at Forefathers Organics in Dansville.
Unlock the power of nature with Forefathers Organics, your premium CBD store. We offer the highest quality CBD and hemp products to liberate your mind, body, and soul, helping you live happy and free. Our mission is driven by excellence and transparency, using cutting-edge scientific methods to combat stress and target issues at their source. From potent ingestible CBD to soothing topicals, all our products are USDA certified organic. Discover all natural wellness from farm to table. Visit forefathersorganics.com for more information.
AJ had to do some redecorating there midstream. You had your Batavia Daily News sign come down. It's always for the brand, though. Everything for the brand.
All for the brand, baby. All for the brand.
So, AJ, you got dinner coming up in a little bit. I held you up, but I think we're going to get out of here just in time. Before we get to your dinner plans, let's dive into Chiefs Week. Big time of year in Bills country. It's been a budding rivalry over the past many years, now a full-blown AFC conference rivalry, and you can tell the Bills players excited to get this one underway on Sunday. One for AFC supremacy, maybe not quite in the standings, but if you beat the defending Super Bowl champions, you hand them their first loss of the season, that certainly, proves a lot if you're the Bills, if they are able to take care of business. But before we get to some storylines surrounding the game, let's get to some injury updates, AJ, and we'll take them one by one here. We'll start with Matt Milano. He had his 21-day window to return from injured reserve opened earlier this week. He was in the red non-contact jersey today in front of the media, his first practice in front of the media since returning from that pectoral injury. He also went through the Bills walkthrough on Wednesday, but the media did not see that practice. He participated fully in positional work that included tackling the heavy tackling dummy, also working with the sled. And from my vantage point, Milano looks good. Now, you didn't see him out there tackling the Bills offense or reading plays and chasing down defenders in the flat and this, that, and the other thing. But judging from what we saw from Milano today, I think he's on track to return after the bye week.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what we get from Milano. Again, he hasn't played a regular season game in over 400 days, and I understand why fans are excited, and they should be, because he's an all-pro player at his peak, and he's a really solid player. But again, we'll see what he actually is. In the video you did show or sent out there today, he did look good. He looked like he was hitting the bag pretty physical and doing a good job with it. So he looked like he's, almost back to 100%. Like you said, I would not be shocked if he's back for that San Fran game. And you just got to hope that he can, stay on the field along with Terrell Bernard. But again, I think the injury to Spector to IR is interesting to see what they do with that middle linebacker spot if Bernard were to go down. Because, Terrell Dotson could have been claimed, but Miami picked him up, so he's not available. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with the depth. But you still have Dorian Williams there. You can still maybe run some three linebacker sets with those three guys, and a defense with Matt Milano, a healthy Matt Milano, and a Matt Milano that's still got it is a scary defense, and one to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and you mentioned the chance of the Bills playing a three linebacker set defensively. By no means am I ruling that out in terms of rotating that into what they do within their scheme. But you're not going to see the Bills take Taron Johnson off the field with regularity, and that's what you would have to do if you put those three linebackers out there for the most part. And I just don't see the Bills doing that on a regular basis. As good as Dorian Williams has played throughout the course of the season, as much as he has improved from last year, I still think there's been some hiccups. And with Taron Johnson being your best player on defense, it's going to be tough for them to run those three linebacker sets with any regularity. But like I said, by no means am I counting out the possibility of them mixing that in a bit down the road. Next up, Amari Cooper, AJ, some more good news for Bills fans. He appears on track to return this week against the Chiefs, and boy, the Bills need it. Still with Keon Coleman out, someone that we'll get to later. They need Cooper to return. He's missed 2 straight games with that wrist injury. He's been sporting that heavy wrap/cast on his injured wrist. He had yet to catch passes from Josh Allen in view of the media leading into today's practice, but today we saw him catch those passes from Allen. Yesterday he was catching passes off the jugs machine, perhaps in preparation for today's practice. So good sign from Amari Cooper, and we talked to him after practice, and he says he's on track to play this weekend against the Chiefs. It's just a matter of getting used to things and being able to haul in those passes, like I said, with that wrap perhaps still on his hand come game day.
Yeah, they need him back. Like you mentioned already, Keon Coleman is out this weekend. So, I mean, Amari Cooper, his presence during the first game since coming over from the trade, he did a really good job, right? Even that limited fashion. Then a quieter game, then he went down with that wrist injury and has missed the last 2 games, if I'm remembering that correctly.
Correct.
So he is, a valuable piece of this offense and the guy that they traded for. They gave up a 3rd-round pick for him. They want to use him. He's going to be that typical X-boundary number 1 guy for them, and they need that, especially against the Chiefs defense. I mean, this Chiefs defense is unbelievable. Top 5, top 10 in all advanced metrics. They're the reason why they're 9-0 right now. And you need as much help as you can get, possibly without Dalton Kincaid on the field and Keon Coleman. You're going to need guys to step up, and you're also going to need Amari Cooper to really play his game and show that, show why the Bills gave up what they did to get him midseason.
And you mentioned Dalton Kincaid. I mentioned Keon Coleman previously. We'll hit on Kincaid to start. He and Spencer Brown both absent from practice the 2nd straight day. They both were DNPs. I saw Spencer Brown inside the field house during practice. He was working with athletic trainers, and we talked to him after Wednesday's practice, and he said he's doing everything he can to get out there on Sunday against Kansas City. But while we were speaking with him, his injured ankle was exposed. He was wearing a sandal, perhaps just trying to get some range of motion with that injury. And you could tell it's still quite a bit swollen. So he needs that swelling to go down. There's the pain tolerance, which I don't think there's much of an issue there when it comes to Spencer Brown. But it's going to be, like I said, in terms of that swelling going down and making sure he can perform close to full strength. You don't want a player out there that's really struggling to move around, especially when he's protecting one of the edges along the Bills' offensive line. And you mentioned the strength of the Chiefs' defense. That defensive line still one of the best in the league. So, yeah, Spencer Brown, Dalton Kincaid, both absent. Kincaid nowhere to be found today, at least from my vantage point. If Brown is to miss, it'll be Ryan Vandermark, who came in for him when he was injured during that Colts game. If Kincaid is not able to go, what do you think we'll see there? I think you're going to obviously see more Dawson Knox, a little bit more Quentin Morris, but I think you're going to have to see more from this receiving crew in terms of that short passing game, that yards after catch, filling in for that Dalton Kincaid type role. I know you already have Khalil Shakir, but perhaps you need Curtis Samuel to take another step forward as well, as we saw from him at the beginning of that Colts game.
Yeah, they're just going to have to continue the motto they've carried with them. Matt Collins will have to step up. Khalil Shakir will have to continue to work out of the slot like he's been. And, Dawson Knox made, there was ever a time really for Dawson Knox to really step up. He showed it when Dalton Kincaid went down last week. He had that nice over-the-shoulder grab. I thought he was serviceable in the run game. And he's the guy that's had success with Josh Allen. They have a lot of history together. They played probably the longest on the team together on that offensive side of the ball in terms of pass catcher to quarterback. I don't think anyone's been around longer than Dawson Knox. So overpaid.
That's absolutely right.
That's absolutely right. Overpaid, yes, like that's clear as day. But these are the games where you lose a Dalton Kincaid maybe. Dawson Knox, I think, is the guy that needs to step up. And like you mentioned, maybe some more Quentin Morris. I think he's unreliable in the run blocking game in terms of a consistent run blocker, but I think you can get something out of him as a pass catcher. The highlight play, obviously, that Josh Allen made against Miami a couple weeks ago to Quentin Morris. So I think those two guys, and then, like I said, I think Matt Collins, Khalil Shakir, and then Amari Cooper are going to have to be those 3 guys, along with Curtis Samuel, who I just feel like isn't quite gelling. Like they're trying, but it's just not clicking with that. So we'll see what happens again against a very good Chiefs defense.
Yeah, what'd you think about Matt Collins' comments yesterday? Doesn't take elevators, wants to go on the show alone, wants to live in the woods for 100 days, says he's just a savage human being. I think that's the perfect way to describe Matt Collins. And he's really becoming a folk legend here in Buffalo very, very quickly. This may be his only season here, but with his production to go with the personality, I think you need that. Otherwise, Bills fans would have kind of resented that free agency signing and how much they were using him to begin the year and how much they've had to use him last week and probably going into this week. But he started to produce, and that personality is just undeniable. He's one of the most interesting men in the world.
Yeah, I think he found a niche. He found something that Bills fans connected with, and he's just absolutely ran with it. And he's played well enough where, like, the fan base is still, like you said, kind of, riding that wave of, and he's just kind of going to the full extent with it. He's being smart with it, right? He's kind of building himself a brand in terms of like all his TikToks he does with all that stuff, and then all the interesting answers, and then the questions like the media are asking, like who is asking these questions to this football player? Like it's the weirdest questions, but that's what he's built because of the way he's kind of acted. Every game you feel like before a game I watch on TV, he's working out on the field, no shoes, and they're always talking about it. So he's really
he walks to the games without shoes.
Right. So again, I think he's aware of what this is doing for him, and he's just running with it, and it's working out for him.
All right, finally on the Bills side, Keon Coleman and Dwayne Carter, the wrist injury crew, along with Amari Cooper. They were both off to the side today, working with athletic trainers. Coleman has already been ruled out for this game. He's still not wearing any type of wrap, brace, anything on that wrist. However, he's not doing any work, obviously, with that wrist, just off to the side with athletic trainers. But it's good to see that he doesn't have that heavy wrap that Cooper does. However, like I said, I wonder if he would if he were participating during practices. Dwayne Carter's been on injured reserve. He can come back after the bye week in week 12. But good to see those guys out there. And I think they're both getting closer. I think Coleman, you target that first game after the bye, but at the same time, I'm just not so sure that there's any guarantee that we see him at that point. And then Carter, I think that we will see him at that point, a different position. You're not catching passes. You can kind of just strap it up and go. And I think that we'll see Carter come back in week 13.
Yeah, I think this stretch of games right here, you got Kansas City, Detroit coming up, obviously LA, then you got the bye week. I think right here is where you want to get the healthiest. I would not rush anyone back. I know, like you
got Kansas City, the bye week, yep. Niners, Rams, Lions, right?
Yep.
I think that's the order.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I don't know the exact order, but I know it's Chiefs by
tough stretch,
Niners.
Tough stretch.
Right. So I think this is the time where you take your time with you got the division basically wrapped up. And that's why, this game is still huge, and it stinks that the Broncos lost last week, because not only for the Chiefs, and this could be for the 1 seed, but also, I don't want to say it, but if the Bills get the 2 seed, I do think that Cincinnati can potentially go 10-7 and grab that 7 seed, because I think you have the Chargers, and then whoever doesn't win the AFC North or the Steelers and Ravens will get that 5 seed. You got the
big game between the Bengals and Chargers this week.
So I think if the Bengals win this week, you could potentially see a Bills. I mean, I'm not going to put it out there, but the Bills might have to. I did. Could potentially go with Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and then Patrick Mahomes to get to the Super Bowl, which would be an amazing run. But yeah, so I think that Broncos game not only hurt the Bills in terms of now they can't really play for the 1 seed, but now also I think it gives the Bengals more of an opportunity to sneak in late here. But again, at the end of the day, seeding really doesn't matter too much. You play who you play, right? You play who's in front of you. If you play your best football, if the Bills play their best football, they can beat anyone in this league. So, yeah, I think this is a big game, obviously, and I kind of forgot what the original point was because I'm on a tangent now. But overall, I think, again,
it was just Keon Coleman and Dwayne Carter returning. But, hey,
right.
you actually spun it into a perfect way, because there was 2 things that I wanted to bring up later in this podcast. We'll get to them now. Before we transition to the Chiefs side of things, a big injury just came across the wire, as they say, a few moments ago. But you brought up the 1 seed, and that's what I want to discuss second. But before that, what a week in the NFL this week. The first 3 windows, the Thursday window, the 1 o'clock Sunday, the 4 o'clock Sunday. You have Eagles Commanders tonight, Thursday. You have Ravens Steelers, 1 o'clock Sunday, and then Bills Chiefs coming up on Sunday at 4. And then the Sunday night game, I think, is that Bengals Chargers game. So, man, oh, man, this is why the NFL is just the best of the best. But you mentioned the 1 seed. How important is it for the Bills? We'll begin from their perspective. How important is it for them to win this game and put themselves in position to claim that 1 seed? If you ask me, I don't think it's as important as it's been in seasons past. With the Bills having that week 12 bye week coming so late in the season, I'm not sure it's as critical as seasons past when you might have an earlier bye week. And from the Chiefs' perspective, they did have an early bye week, so it may be a bit more important from their point of view. But at least from that side of things, when you look at home field, I think that's where that number 1 seed really comes into focus and really becomes critical to claim, or at least put yourself in position to claim. But how important do you think it is for either team to claim the number 1 seed?
Yeah, I think the first thing is I miss the 6 playoff teams where the second seed would get rewarded with the first round bye. I think the extra wild card game, the 2 seed, I understand why they did it, more revenue and an extra game for each conference. But I think with this Bills team in terms of the 1 seed, I'm kind of with you. Like, I don't think it's essential or even like that. I mean, it's kind of a big deal, right? I mean, you get the first round bye, you get to play all your games at home. But I think at the end of the day, as long as you don't get that 4 seed and you would have to play Kansas City, avoid Kansas City in the divisional round at all costs. I think that's the more important thing. I think you want to see them in the AFC Championship. If you get the 2 or 3 seed, you can avoid them as long as Kansas City takes care of their business. So a win this week would be huge. It would get them closer to that. But you still, again, need the Chiefs to drop a game. Looking at their schedule here, the rest of the way, they got the Panthers, Raiders. I mean, they could drop one of the Chargers. They play the Texans, Steelers, and Broncos to close the year. So they got a couple tough games that they could potentially drop, but you still look at that Bills schedule. They got the Lions, like we've already mentioned, and the Rams coming up, along with a couple divisional games down the stretch there. So the 1 seed is important. But for the Bills in their spot right now, I think the most important thing is getting healthy after the bye, trying to beat the Chiefs at home and doing that, get a confidence booster, go into the bye on a high note, and go from there. And however those games play out and however the matchups play out in the playoffs, do your job. And if this team plays at their peak when they can, like they've shown, they can beat anyone in the league. So that's what it's going to be about ultimately.
All right, before we move on to a quick Chiefs injury and some more storylines surrounding this game, let's thank our sponsors, Forefathers Organics in Dansville. At Forefathers Organics, their mission is to liberate, educate, and innovate with the highest quality CBD and hemp-derived products for your mind, body, and soul so you can live happy and free. Visit them at 87 Franklin Street in Dansville, online at forefathersorganics.com, or call them at 585-335-2223 to learn more about the products they offer. All right, AJ, big injury on the Chiefs side of things. One of the best kickers in the league, Harrison Butker, dealing with a left knee injury. He's headed to IR. Expected to be headed to IR, or is that confirmed?
Yes, yeah. Tom Pelissero reported meniscus injury.
Headed to IR, meniscus tear. They signed Spencer Schrader, who I know that you know a little bit about. Who would have thought the Bills might have the kicking edge in this one at the outset of the season with Tyler Bass's struggles, but he seems to be getting things together, and now Butker goes out. Schrader comes in. What do you know about him?
Yeah, undrafted. Did some research on him after it because I was just interested because, of course.
And waiting for me.
And waiting for you. The Bills fan, like, I know my dad's going to come home and be like, well, man, like, he's going to come on the field, game winner, 59 yards, and drill it, this guy. So I had to look him up to tell my dad what he actually is. He's only made 2 kicks in his NFL career out of Notre Dame, my college team. So he's going to have a tough, environment to walk into. Undrafted free agent, Notre Dame, stuck on the Jets and Colts practice squads this year. Has kind of floated around, made a couple of kicks recently, one between 20 and 29, and then one between 40 and 49. So he is 2 for 2. But again, I mean, he's coming off a short week. You got to travel with the team, get there, probably meet him in Buffalo or fly to Kansas City, how the logistics of that will work. I don't know. But yeah, it's going to be a tough environment to walk into. In very little experience, and especially if the wind, how the wind gets in late November, December here at Highmark. So it's going to be a tough environment for him. Yeah, felt it today. So it's going to be that's advantage Bills in my opinion. But again, with knowing how their luck sometimes comes down to it at the end, he'll do something that we've never seen before or something like that. So we'll see how it goes.
All right, before we get out of here in a few minutes, let's move on to some further topics. This is the 8th meeting between these two teams since Sean McDermott came to Buffalo. What's been your favorite matchup? We talked to Deion Dawkins after practice. He said, despite the outcome, he said 13 seconds was one of the best football games he's ever been a part of, and that really stands out to him in this rivalry. And I know for me that is not one of my favorites because working that game from home, mind you, I was not at the game, but working that game and having to rework my story a million times leading up to the final buzzer was not enjoyable. And also the outcome, of course, and not being able to cover the Bills in the Super Bowl was also a tragedy in and of itself, but because it obviously seemed like they were well on their way to that point, especially if they took down the Chiefs in that divisional round matchup. But what's been your favorite matchup between these two teams? There's been 8 since McDermott took over, and I think 6, maybe 7 actually, since Josh Allen has been under center.
Yeah, so definitely not the 13 seconds because I was, calling my buddies like while it was happening, like, yo, we're going to the AFC Championship in Buffalo. Like, oh my God, we're gonna be there. Like, we're gonna to the Super Bowl, and then that happened. So not that. But I think honestly, my favorite game was the 2023 regular season game when the Bills brought in Von Miller. And he forced that pressure, and Taron Johnson sealed that game with the interception. I think it just showed at that time that why the Von Miller addition made sense. And I think it was just an overall great win. Maybe it wasn't a 2017 win, but I think it was like a 24-20, somewhere in the early 20 numbers that the Bills or Mahomes needed a touchdown. You felt like, oh, here he's going to come down the field and score, and then I think it was a 3rd and 10. Von Miller forces the pressure, and Taron Johnson seals it. So that's my favorite one because, again, I think they proved of the Von Miller edition why they did it, even though he went down with an ACL later in that year. And it was a big win as the Bills continued to build momentum in that season.
Yeah, that's been right around where these games have been. They haven't really been shootouts, although they've been 2 of the top offenses in the league the past number of years. They've been right around 20, 25, maybe maxing out at around 27 points for either side. But I think defense is going to be important in this one. It's not going to be scoring touchdowns on every possession. The kicking game might come in big, and Schrader may be tested. Tyler Bass may be tested, but we will see how it shakes out. We'll dive a bit deeper on our preview episode coming up a little bit later this week, probably on Saturday or perhaps even Sunday. But let's just give a quick overview. Kansas City's offense hasn't been their strong suit this year. Like you said, it's really been carried by the defense, has Kansas City, but the passing offense starting to trend in the right direction with the addition of DeAndre Hopkins. That's allowed Travis Kelce to return to form. Maybe he started to do so even before Hopkins came to Kansas City, but Juju Smith-Schuster is also back this week. And then you have the rookie Xavier Worthy, who's been scoring touchdowns, but hasn't really shown the consistency as the team's forced number 2 target after Rashee Rice went down. And they've been able to run the ball as well. Kareem Hunt came in for the injured Isaiah Pacheco, who has just had his 21-day window to return from IR open this week as well. Kareem Hunt came from off the couch and has gone right into that offense and is producing very, very well. So could be a sleeping giant, this offense, just waiting to explode with a big performance.
Yeah, they got some names. We know kind of the gist here. Obviously, Kelce, I thought he's picked it up the last 3 weeks for my fantasy team's done really well, and I think he's just playing overall better as a receiver. You just see how his brain is just unbelievable in terms of knowing where to be and just all that stuff. Typical tight end quarterback relationship there with Kelce and Mahomes. And then Worthy, he has his moments. I think he has a lot of trouble tracking the ball. He's been targeted 43 times this year and has only brought in 20 of those. So that's a guy that it's kind of not really been working for in terms of that connection. Noah Gray, Justin Watson, a couple names, obviously DeAndre Hopkins, another guy. So this offense, I think the key for the Bills will be getting them behind the sticks because their Chiefs passing, according to the EPA, per down. On first down, they're 22nd in the league in EPA per play in their passing game, 19th on second down, and then on third down, they're first. So I think that is kind of you got to make them, go in those third and longs and, back them up behind the sticks. The defensive line is going to need to play well against this Chiefs offensive line, who I think is more vulnerable than in years past. I think Mahomes has been running around a little bit more. So again, they're really bad on the first and second down, but on third down, they really get again. So I think this Bills defense needs to get to Mahomes and put them behind the sticks early.
And finally, defensively, they went through a pretty sizable transition in the offseason, losing some players in the secondary, losing some players in front of the secondary. Trent McDuffie has really spread his wings this season. He's become one of their best defensive players, if not their most impactful defensive player. And they have Chris Jones, who's one of the top defensive linemen in the league. This is a unit that scares me from a Bills perspective. Buffalo has run through some inferior competition this year, but going up the top defense in the league, perhaps this is going to test them in a way that they haven't been so far this year.
Yeah, this is really their test, right? Like, it's a mid-November game. These are the games that, again, I get it. You want to, you're regardless, you're going to want to get it done in January. That's the goal, right? But a November game, this late game execution by the offense, I think, is going to be crucial. Spagnuolo is going to test you. He's going to send multiple rushers. They have Chris Jones in the middle. George Karlaftis is having a great year. Nick Bolton doing what he always does from that linebacker spot. He flies around. Justin Reed's having a phenomenal year for that secondary, leading that back end. So again, you're going up against a really good defense, and I think this Bills offense is going to be tested. You got to find those safety nets. You got to keep everything in front of you. You don't want to push the ball down the field when you don't have to. You want to take what's given. And Allen's going to have to play mistake-free football because the Chiefs have prided themselves on forcing turnovers and making other teams uncomfortable and coming through in the big moments. And that's what they've done all year. So it's going to be out-executing and out-coaching this Chiefs team in the critical moments, because we all know more than likely this game will come down to one score.
All right, before we talk about AJ's dinner plans and get out of here, let's thank our sponsor, Forefathers Organics in Dansville.
Unlock the power of nature with Forefathers Organics, your premium CBD store. We offer the highest quality CBD and hemp products to liberate your mind, body, and soul, helping you live happy and free. Our mission is driven by excellence and transparency, using cutting-edge scientific methods to combat stress and target issues at their source. From potent ingestible CBD to soothing topicals, all our products are USDA certified organic. Discover all natural wellness from farm to table. Visit forefathersorganics.com for more information.
All right, AJ, sorry I kept you a little bit longer than expected, but why don't you touch on your dinner plans? You're cooking dinner for the family tonight. Call the fire department.
Call the fire department. Chicken. Well, my mom made the spinach artichoke dip on Sunday for the games, but it's left over. So we're going to do some spinach artichoke dip chicken, and then we will do these smashed potatoes. You just boil them, and then you use like a bottom of a glass, smash them down, melt some butter, get a little brush the potatoes with butter, sprinkle some salt, some cheddar cheese, some bacon bits, put it back in the oven. I saw it on TikTok last night, sent it to my mom, and she's like, why don't you do it? So I'm going to do it. I went to Tops before the show, and we're going to have some smashed potatoes with cheese and bacon. And I'm not a sour cream guy, but a lot of people dip it in sour cream as well. So, yeah, that's the plan, with some chicken and spinach artichoke dip. Should be delicious.
It should be delicious, as well as this appetizing matchup between the Bills and Chiefs coming up on Sunday evening. We'll have another pod before the game, but thank you for joining us for this one. For AJ, I'm Alex. We'll see you next time.
Peace out.